Welcome to episode 8 of the Connecting Dots podcast, where it is my job to connect the dots in the lives of my guests, both in their personal and professional lives. I want to understand what moves and shape them. I want to hear their ideas and learn from their experiences. In this episode, my guest is Pedro Ferreira. We connect the dots in his biography from Portugal to France, back to Portugal, and then to Frankfurt am Main in Germany. We also connect the dots in his professional life that he dedicates entirely to startups. He shares super interesting details about the pitch culture of the startup accelerator he's working at. And we talk about dealing with failures, networking opportunities, and much more. I want to give you a short outlook of his professional activities. Pedro is an ecosystem builder and serial entrepreneur. He's part of the local team at Founder Institute and of Singularity University in Frankfurt. For those who don't know, the Founder Institute is the world's largest pre-seed startup accelerator. They help founders get to traction and funding with a support network of startup experts. In addition to that, he organizes a lot of startup events in Frankfurt am Main and other cities in Hessen like Gießen, Darmstadt and Wiesbaden. He does so under the umbrella of Frankfurt Valley. But we will talk more about the startup networking opportunities and about Pedro's role in that regard in the interview. So here we go. Pedro, welcome to my podcast. Good morning. Nice to see you.
Good morning.
Let's just start where your life started too. From where are you originally?
Well, I'm originally from Portugal. Yes, I did my main educational part. My background was really in Portugal, but suddenly in my final year I decided to go abroad. So my first experience was in Prague during a summer school, and I felt that the international mindset was creating me some sparkle in my brain. And so the last year I indeed spent the entire year in Paris, where I finished my management and marketing bachelor's. Yeah.
You were at a business school, right?
Yes.
How was your experience there? Did you like it?
Well, yes, I did like a lot my experience in Paris. So it was a very international school with people from all over the world. And I think it created me the mindset that business should be international and that we should focus on getting a scalable business and not only just work for one country. So while in Paris, I got to understand how small the Portuguese market is, for example, and how difficult it would be from a geographical point of view to handle just the Portuguese market. So I had the willingness to keep my expat experience.
That is something that I noticed when I did my Erasmus semester in Spain, in Murcia. And the people there told me, "You're so lucky in Germany." I said, I'm happy there too, but what do you mean? And they said, well, you're in the center of Europe and you're in just very little time, you're in all of these big, great cities. Exactly. Prague, Paris, Zurich, Wien, Amsterdam, and all of that. Mm-hmm. And they, from the south of Spain, the southeast of Spain, or from the south of Portugal too, you need so much time to get up there, right? It's not so easy to go there for a weekend trip.
Yes.
Yeah. When you finished your business school, did you come to Germany directly?
No. So the thing was that during my last year, and when I was finishing, there was the moment I had to decide what is the next step. So the next step, I was looking at the different options. I was looking at what my colleagues were doing. So either you have one path where you go to a corporate and you have more stability, maybe more money, more structures, or the other way where you join or you create your own job or you join a startup. And I felt, okay, maybe my personality type, maybe looking at what they have to offer, working with a startup would make much more sense. So I met a very interesting startup in Paris that offered me the possibility to start with them. And at that time, I was responsible to open the Portuguese market. So they gave me from day one a very responsible task that I could track my own performance and that I could see the impact of my work. And from day one, I understood, okay, if I want to prove myself, if I want to really create an impact, this is the best way to do it. So from day one of the things I did was to say, okay, I'm here in Paris, I'm working for the Portuguese market, so what is the next goal? So if I develop the market well enough, are we going to open a Portuguese or Iberian office there? And that was the agreement. So they challenged me to do it. It was a very interesting project where we indeed managed to conquer several great key accounts in Portugal, in Spain, in Brazil. So in the end, we managed to open an office in Lisbon. We managed to grow our number of accounts by 10, 20 times more than what we expected. So I ended up in Lisbon, although it was not my plan, but this startup happened to lead me in that direction. But as the startups are, so we grew too much. We were bought twice by two companies. Two American companies ended up buying us. The last one was Oracle, which is a big corporation.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and that time when Oracle bought us, we had the chance. Well, we had two options: either to leave the company with a good compensation and with the stocks, or to keep working with them under their rules, under the price that they define it, under the locations that they define it. And well, for me, the option would be to go to Dublin. And at that time, when it happened, Dublin was not my first choice. It happened when I was about to get married. So I felt, okay, I'm getting married now, and 1 month I'm moving to Dublin. Maybe it's not the wisest choice. So I decided to decline the offer. And yeah, although I was jobless for some months, I felt, okay, I can be freelancer. I can try to sort out the situation. I was not the only one leaving the project. So we built a good network with all the people that left the company. And we launched several startups in different countries, in Madrid, in Paris. So I was supporting those startups, launching their business and rebuilding the team under new small startups that were at that time disrupting and fighting a bit against Oracle.
And are you still in touch with those guys?
I am.
Yeah.
So these people are people that have been in my network now for more than 10 years, and that I consider them great mentors. They are serial entrepreneurs. That these startups that they rebuilt after Oracle were already bought again by other companies. So those are great mentors that keep pushing me and trying to make me successful.
The startup you were talking about, in what industry was it? What kind of startup?
Well, it was mainly in the internet, e-commerce, and ad tech. So yeah.
Fast forward a few years, or sometime later, you moved to Frankfurt, right?
Yes, exactly. So
directly from Lisbon?
It was directly from Lisbon. So yes. After some years doing the freelancer things were working quite okay. But life brought me to Frankfurt.
What was your official freelancer title, or what did you say? What did you do?
It was mainly marketing consultant. So with digital marketing and supporting e-commerce projects.
Okay, I see. And what, if you're willing to share, what made you come to Frankfurt?
So indeed, it was not our first choice as a couple. So both me and my wife had always the goal to keep our international experience. So indeed, we were colleagues in Portugal, but then we met once again in Greece, and at that time, my wife was working for a Greek bank, and when we met, we said, okay, the next step for us, it's maybe we go back to Portugal, but we know that our life is going to be international, so we will find a way to balance and find the sweet spot. And as she was working in the financial industry, I think the perfect hub in Europe, it's Frankfurt. So she ended up finding a job in Frankfurt, and although it was not our first choice, I followed. So it was mainly I followed my wife, and what I did try to do was I was working with a startup in Lisbon, a very early stage startup. We were only 5, but the main competitor was based in Frankfurt, and it was very tricky for me to do the change. But in a way, comparing to football, it was like changing from Eintracht Frankfurt to Bayern, for example. So they had to understand that, it was not about leaving a project. It was more that I was in the wrong place at the wrong time, maybe. So I ended up joining a big competitor of us here in Frankfurt.
But there was no bad will, no bad blood.
Not at all. In the end, we ended up building a good relation because what I believe is really that there are no competitors. So if you work in a market and you find good synergies, you find out that instead of competitors, you have good partners. So in the end, we ended up building a very win-win situation. We kept in contact, we feed each other, and we managed to make possible for this Portuguese company to grow a lot based in the trades that we did with this local one here in Frankfurt. So I think in the end, we were more than happy. The founder traveled at least 2 or 3 times here to Frankfurt, and me the other way around. So we built a very healthy relationship out of transference.
That's great. That's cool. And when you came to Germany, what was like really your first impression of the first few days or weeks? What did you think?
So when I arrived, this company was quite international. So we were working several markets, more than 20 markets. The company it was not a real startup, was already a scale-up with around 100 employees. So it was very international. I never felt the pain of not speaking German inside this company. But then at some point I felt the need to understand a little better about Frankfurt and about Germany, and I wanted to update myself because I was quite involved with the ecosystems in Paris, in Lisbon. But then when I was trying to do it for Frankfurt, I couldn't really find that much information because of my language lack. So at some point, it was really impossible to find someone willing to share knowledge. We are talking at a time there were no WeWork, where we are sitting today. There were no Mindspace. There were no Tech Quartier. There were not that many events.
What year was it?
Well, it was 2011, 2012.
2011, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, the big co-working space, the wave of co-working spaces came like 3, 4, 5 years ago, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So at that point, I felt, okay, there is nothing going on. So I'll better stay where I'm working, and if there is nothing, there is nothing. But at some point, some years after, I would say 4 years after, there was something again that maybe because Lisbon started to grow a lot, there was a really good hype when a lot of success cases, the first unicorns started to arise in Lisbon, and I felt, okay, let's try it once again. Let me see what is happening in Frankfurt. And once again, I felt the same problem. And at that point, I said, okay, maybe if the problem is still there, someone needs to solve it.
That's a great attitude.
And let me check if there are more people like me that feel that there is something lacking for international people to create impact in our region. And indeed, I met some people telling me the same. Yes, there is no platform. There is not an easy way for us to find information. Either there is nothing happening or it's happening, but we cannot find the information. So what I did, I approached several players in the ecosystem that we normally call multipliers, or people that are producing content or people that have produced events. And I offer them, well, why don't you start doing as well in English? Because if not, people don't care aware of what's happening. So one of the main portals at that time was RheinMindStartups.com, gave me the opportunity to start publishing in English. And from the day one, I said, okay, I'm not a journalist. My English may not be the perfect one, but this will create some traction. And indeed, I started getting a lot of feedback, not only from people in Frankfurt, but people from outside that started to get aware, and they started writing me saying, hey, I'm traveling to Frankfurt. Do you want to help me out while I'm there? Can you connect me to these startups? Can you maybe do an event where I talk to the German and the Frankfurt startups? And suddenly something that I started as a hobby started to taking me much more time than what I expected. So my full time was indeed, I kept working with some local startups that were growing and that were starting to getting international. And I only got aware of them because of my own networking, going out and asking people. And I found Acomodeo and Bedside, and I supported them in their internationalization phases. But at the same time, I was always doing these side projects, events, publications, to support really the international highlighting what is happening in Frankfurt, and this took a lot of time. So I identified areas where we could improve what they were missing, and one of them was Founders Institute. And indeed, in the end, with so many pieces that I brought to the ecosystem, I ended up with a very good network that I'm now supporting one way or the other, mainly entrepreneurs, early stage entrepreneurs that want to develop ideas, that want to turn a business into something scalable, and helping them to get traction and to build their business.
And this is how we met too. I saw you online. I was looking for startup information in Frankfurt, and that's how I contacted you. Then we met at a startup event just yesterday.
Exactly.
Now it's the 26th of February, and this is kind of what you do today still, right? But did I understand correctly that it's not like your main job?
No, so it's not my main job, because indeed, those who do this, they know that, it's not a thing that you do for money. Most of the times you do it for passion and for the willingness to support others. So yes, I must confess that financially wise is not the wisest decision on the short term, but I do believe that you are creating a lot of value. So once you support others, people recognize you, people recommended you. So for example, the co-founder of my main business that I'm about to start from March on, I met him through friends, and also he pitched for Founders Institute. So I do believe that I would never have met my co-founder if I would not be so outgoing, so willing to share and willing to give feedback. So yes, I may not be the richest person on earth, but I'm finding a good way to establish connections, to connecting dots, and this is helping me a lot.
I noticed that too. When you keep yourself open-minded and you talk to people and you just want to do a good job for other people, funny things start happening.
Yes.
You start to get to know people. They recommend you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the project that I'm about to start. I think I met the founder 1 year ago. So my co-founder now. We met 1 year ago, and we kept. He explained to me his idea. We kept doing some coffees, monthly coffee, sharing feedback, and at some point he managed to get some pre-seed money from friends and family. So now he has the money to start the project, and he just called me and told me, okay, now we need to do it. So do you want to jump into the board and let's do it together? So, and yeah, after 1 year of conversations, I just had to say, yes, let's do it. So that's how things, sometimes you should see that all the startups knows it. It's not a 1 month or a 2 month thing. It's really a marathon. Once you start, you need to invest a lot. You need to be willing to be committed and to keep on pushing yourself. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So I listened to a lot of interviews with founders from the US through podcasts, and what I noticed a lot is that people say that startup founders say it's a people's game. It's a game of like human interaction. And do you think this is something that like every founder needs to be good at? There are like examples that Steve Jobs was more the guy who convinces others, and that Steve Ballmer, his partner, was more the tech nerd. Do you more often see in founder teams those roles shared, or do they rather complement each other?
Well, I think there are things that need to be complementary, like some skills and some knowledge need really to be shared, because one cannot be an expert in everything. But when it comes to soft skills and to the purpose of the company and the mindset, that needs to be aligned from day one. So if people don't share the same values, if people don't have the same attitude, sooner or later they will have problems. So yes, people need to be complementary in some areas, but if in the basics they are not aligned, they will have problems sooner. So it's good that you really spend some time with your co-founders, with your team, and even when you hire the first employees, you need to be really transparent about this, because if not, problems will arise for sure. And I think this is something that is key in pretty much all the startups and companies, obviously, because a startup, it's about a product, it's about a service. True, yes, but what it's going to make it successful is the team behind it. So one of the things at Founders Institute that we always try to see, it's not about the idea, it's about the founder itself, because ideas, everyone has ideas, but the way you execute, the way your attitudes are, it's what's going to define the way you will be successful. So we believe a lot that it's about the founders and about the founding team, and not so much about the business.
So you would say you bet on the founders, on the people, and not on the product, on the business.
Yes.
Interesting.
We believe, even with Founders Institute, we believe that a person that joins us can join either without idea or with several ideas, because he's going to pivot with the feedback that we give, with the feedback that the mentors gives. We have a lot of people that join with an idea X, but then they pivot. So even with my co-founder now, we are still discussing for some weeks, and I'm pretty sure for some months, the business model, because there are different ways that we can approach our idea, and we can pivot from there. And yeah, the feedback from the customer will also make us change. So in a way, you need to adapt, you need to innovate. So yes, you start with an idea, but in the end, you will end up with something very different. So
I see. Yeah. What you were saying about that the founders have to be on the same page, that they have to be aligned in regards to the project. Is there some, are there some tasks or some exercises where that help two people to get on the same page, to get the same mindset? Is it like, do you stand at a whiteboard and you brainstorm? Do you write like a manifesto? Or is it just long, open, honest talks?
Well, it's different from team to team. I would say all the examples you gave are a good example of how you can do it. That's how I do, for example, with my co-founder right now. So we spend a good time together. We share it between us, but also with other stakeholders, with our investors. So in order that everyone knows the basics, so that it's transparent and it's available and documented to everyone, so that if we onboard someone tomorrow, this person can have access. Yes, we will share it and we will talk about it, but if the person wants and check all the materials that we have, it's all documented, so that people can really see, okay, this is why the decision was made, because of this and that. They can question then, and what about this and what about that? That's good. And then we will re-question everything. But at least it's a good way for us to track where we are, and people can understand where we are going.
That's a super interesting topic. And do you have these documents like on a shared folder?
Yes.
Ah, yeah.
Yes.
So really everybody in the company can access all the core documents?
Right now, yes.
Ah, yeah. Oh,
yes.
That's interesting.
Well, and I think it's quite normal for startups to use other channels like WhatsApp or Slack, where you share in a different way, in a different content, but you share the information about what's going on, and you update yourselves depending on the channel you use. It depends as well the level of confidentiality and the level of formality or informality, but it's good to have different channels, different ways of communicating, because some people may like to read it on WhatsApp, some people on Slack, or some people would like to have it really formal on a OneDrive, on a iCloud that you can access and read the full PPT or PDF. So yes, it's good to have different ways to store the information as well, depending on the type of stakeholder that will access the information.
And the project that you mentioned that starts now in March, is it something you can talk about? Or?
Well, it's still a bit confidential, but okay. In a way, it's very related to what I have been doing in the past. So it's related to technology. It's related to using technologies to improve the way the customers use content and use the entertainment platforms, and we want to create ways to increase to give better experience to people that are consuming content. So
it's a tech startup?
Yes, exactly.
And your role is more on the marketing,
exactly.
And people side.
Yes, and connecting or developing the ecosystem of this platform in order to onboard different technology providers on one side, on the other side to onboard the first users, the first people that will support us to produce the content. So yes, it's a very diverse role where one needs to do different tasks, so it's not a boring job. You speak with technical teams, you speak with content producers, you speak with people, your end your end clients to give you feedback about the app, for example. So yes, it's a very diverse role where you have different tasks. Although your title may say CMO, you end up doing pretty much everything.
Yeah. Okay. And when people in sometime in March want to check out what it exactly is, it's not already.
It's not already there. No,
okay.
We are working still to build the MVP. So I believe only in 3 months we will be able to deliver something that I could today. Today I cannot, but in 3 months I could just say to download the app. But right now it's not possible.
We need to do a part 2.
Yes, maybe.
But when people follow you on LinkedIn, they
Yes.
will sooner or later find out,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah. And your work at Founders Institute, is it more the work that you described now, like networking, getting to know people, making the right introductions, or is it something else?
Well, Founders Institute, as you may or not know, it's a very international platform that was built more than 10 years ago in Silicon Valley to support early stage startups to develop from an idea to a business. And from Silicon Valley, they open in more than 185 cities, I believe. And there was something that was missing in Frankfurt. So I felt I did try to open something like Founders Institute with a German company called Start Zero, but we failed. Because we ran out of money and no sponsors. But with Founders Institute, we found a way to do it. So we built a pre-seed accelerator program that supports people to develop their ideas. So we started last year to pitch this to founders here in Frankfurt. We managed to gather 30 founders to apply to join. We started with 30, but it's a very difficult program that we meet every week. Founders have assignments and things that they need to deliver to prove that they are working and moving forward in those specific areas. And what we do, we bring mentors, at least 5 to 8 mentors that can support them on that specific topic of the week. And yes, from 30, and after 3 months, we ended up with 8 founders that finished the program, that graduated, that incorporated into businesses, and that now we are still in contact. So still this week, I met at least with 2 of them. They still meet each other as a group outside as well. And we are now looking forward to start the second cohort that will start. We will keep on doing some events in the meantime to recruit the next batch of founders for the second cohort. But in theory, if we manage, we will start in the end of August again to end the second cohort still in 2020.
So with 30 people, this last cohort started, and 8 out of 30 is a good quote, actually, right?
It is. So the program is really tough, so very difficult. We ask them to be committed. They can do it part-time, and some of them did that. But at some point, most of the drops were because they were not able to cope with the level of stress, the level of assignments. So the 8 that survived, as we said, were really the ones who felt the commitment and the willingness to move forward, to incorporate, because some people may just say, okay, I'm not ready yet to incorporate. Well, but if you are not ready to incorporate, then you can join in the next cohort. That's what we always say. So we expect that the people that were not able to finish last time, that they will now join once again, and we will push them forward to try to really finish their work and to build the company.
And so that the persons that are listening who don't know anything about startups, what you just explained means that when somebody in Frankfurt has an idea for a startup, he can talk with you guys at Founder Institute.
For example, yes.
And you help them in this, is it a 14-week program?
Yes,
exactly. A 14-week in-person program that includes challenges to like weekly challenges and all to grow their idea into a more more developed one.
Yes.
So that it's ready to take on seed money.
Yes, exactly. Or to join another accelerator program. So because most of the programs that were existing in Frankfurt, like the ones from WeWork Labs or from Tech Quartier, really normally they take people that already have an MVP or that already have something to show, some traction or not really an idea. So we are one step behind, and we help people that are really early stage or naive or, well, that have an idea but really don't know what are the steps that they need to do to get at least the MVP out, to get an incorporated company so that they can then get some traction and join an accelerator program that will develop them internationally.
So could you maybe say that those startup babies learn to walk with you?
Yes, exactly. And then we support them by introducing them to other people that will help them to run, or we keep on in contact. We also have some other programs that will develop them more in a virtual way to connect them to investors and to support them more in a remote way for them to grow.
You mentioned the abbreviation MVP. What is that? What does it mean?
Well, it's the minimum viable product, or something that they can really show this is what my business is about. If it's an app, they show you. If it is at least a website, just for people to be able to interact with the business.
I see, yeah.
If it is a product, a physical product, something that you could sell the next day.
So in the very early stages that you work with the founders, one thing they have to do a lot, because they have to talk to a lot of people, potential investors and all, is pitch their idea, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
The whole pitching thing in the startup ecosystem is something very important, right?
Yes.
What would you say are very important, like general factors that you want to see in a good pitch?
Well, I would say passion. So if the person that is pitching to me doesn't tell me a compelling story, if I see that the founder is faking what is pitching, normally my brain turns off. So I stop believing him. But if the person that is in front of me is able to tell me a story and I feel that he's passionate about it, I feel that, okay, this is the right founder for this project. So I believe in him, and if I believe in him, other people will believe in the idea as well. So, and I really think that, as I said before, it's about the founder itself. So
what I find very interesting in that is that it seems to be something that may come more from a feeling, from an emotion. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes people say, yeah, well, business is something where you have to be tough and rational, and it's about numbers and all, which it may be at some point, right?
Yes.
But in this specific case, it's more about a knowledge of people. Mm-hmm. A lot of emotional intelligence you might need, right?
Yes. So it's also about numbers, obviously, but I believe that when you are talking to someone, either an investor, a client, a partner, you are talking to different types of his body. For example, you are talking to his heart, you're talking to his brain, you're talking to his gut. So at some point you need to touch all of these points in order to have a yes. So, but if you don't convince him in the heart, it's going to be difficult just by the brain to get him to say yes. So it's good that you start with the heart and get the heart to be more into a yes, because if you fail the gut or fail the brain, you may still get the yes just because of the art, but the other way around most probably will not happen.
Mm-hmm. A general observation of mine is that people make decisions based on feelings, and after that oftentimes they try to rationalize it. Mm-hmm. They try to give you the reasons, and then you're like, yeah, I know the reasons, but I know that you made it based on your emotions, on your experiences.
Yes.
Yeah. And what like common mistakes do you see in pitches?
Well, in pitching, I see, one of the first things we had were people that were not willing to pitch. And that's a big mistake. People that are not willing to pitch because they are afraid of sharing the ideas, because they feel that someone will steal the ideas. This is a big, big mistake. We always tell people, if you are not ready to share your idea, how are you willing to get feedback, or that people will invest in you if you cannot pitch? So, or if you are not willing to share it. So we always tell people, pitch every time. So pitch to your family, pitch to your neighbors, just to get some feedback, to train it. But then in the day-to-day business, it's all about pitching. So if you are trying to convince an investor, you need to pitch, obviously, but also a partner, you need to pitch to him for him to integrate the technology with you. To the clients, you are pitching because you want to convince them to use your product or platform. So you need to be able to adapt your pitch, adapt the way that you are communicating in order to convince people to do what you want them to do, in a way.
Maybe when somebody doesn't want to pitch, it's sometimes an indicator that there might be some perfectionism behind it. Mm-hmm. They want to wait until it's perfect. Yes. And this is, I don't know, you can tell me, this is maybe a killer for startups, mm-hmm. to wait until something's perfect.
Yes. So we, as I said, during the Founder Institute program, we always have the weekly meetings. The first thing that the founders do is to pitch. So they need to pitch in every meeting that we have. They need to pitch, because we start with the pitch, and by pitching, they will receive feedback from the mentors. And while the session is going on, we can use some of the examples that they gave on their pitch to give them the hint on how to improve. So when you pitch, the person in front of you is going to give you feedback, either positive or negative. And with that, you can improve your product and solution. So it's all about that. So for me, a no, it's always a way to work on my offer in order to come back to that person, explain it once again if I have the chance, and to get maybe the yes on the next time.
I would love to find out how these feedback rounds, how the feedback part works. Do you have like a certain protocol? Is it that you always name something positive and negative to not just push somebody in this or that direction? So what is the agenda?
Okay, so for example, at Founders Institute, we have a scale from 1 to 5 where we say that 3 is not allowed. So really our mentors need to score either 1 or 2 if the ideas and business model are not good, and 4 or 5 if they feel like the idea is good, that they would be willing to invest on that company and that founder, or that they would be willing to work in that idea. And that's in general lines how we do it. So what we ask our mentors is to really be tough. And if they don't see a 4 or 5, they need to score 2, not a 3, in order to really separate the waters. And those who receive a negative feedback, so below 3 in average, normally what they get from Founders Institute are special assignments to work on those areas where they got negative feedback, in order to have a second chance to get a better ranking. And when the founders have a bad performance, normally we have the kind of on our system a flag that says, okay, this founder is in risk of dropping out, either because of a bad score or because of bad assignments, and we need to have either office hours with this founder or try to connect them with new mentors that can support in the area that is lacking support. And we try somehow to help this founder to develop. Sometimes, yes, sometimes as it is in such a short time, they cannot cope with the rhythm and they drop out. But sometimes people survive.
So it's a grading system from 1 to
5.
From 1 to 5. 5
Yes.
is the best. 1
is the worst.
Is the worst.
Yes.
Okay.
And no 3 is allowed, because if not, people will always say 3.
This is super interesting. I heard this sometimes when people do like personal reviews of stuff. A 7 is not allowed, because a 7 is like, well, it was kind of good, but not so
Yes.
good. You know, it's something in between when you don't really want to make a decision.
Yes, so we avoid that. We always said, if you would not work in this company, if you would not invest, if you don't believe in the founder, give a 2. Don't give a 3 just because your heart was touched by a good pitch. Don't do it.
Okay. And those are also investors that are
Yes,
in attendance,
so-
and they give like 1, 2, 4, or 5.
Yes. Normally we kind of bring a very broad audience or very broad skill set of founders. Normally we invite founders who already raised money, investors that can give feedback about the pitching as well. Sometimes we also invite corporates that already run big teams, big projects. So we have different kind of mentors in our network to support in different angles and different industries. So we have people from the prop tech to the fintech to healthcare in order to cover different areas of business and to support with insights from those industries.
I see. And in this feedback round, for example, an investor, a mentor says, I don't know, this is, I give him a 4, and then follows an explanation of why it's a 4. Mm-hmm. Is it like that?
Yes. So, but what we do first, everyone ranks without giving the reason, to not influentiate the other rankings, and then they explain it, the feedback. Everyone has like 2-3 minutes to explain the ranking, and normally what we invite the founders and the mentors to do is to spend a bit more time together after the session. So normally we were meeting in a bar outside and staying at least until midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning every Tuesday, because people were staying, were talking, were networking, were giving feedback to each other. Also, we invite the founders to work in teams to support each other, so that they need to have physical meetings in groups, they need to report, they need to highlight the bads and the goods of each project of their teams. So one thing that we really emphasize is that inside the cohort, everyone that graduates keep a percentage of all the business that graduated. So they have from day one the motivation to support each other, because in the end they also keep a percentage of the business of the graduate.
They own a piece of the business.
Well, it's a warranty. So in case that they have a liquidation in the future, all of us, the mentors, the directors, the cohort founders, they keep a percentage of the business. It's 4% shared by everyone.
Ah, wow. Okay. So it's really a group thing, a group dynamic.
It's about group. It's about the community. And that's why we ask the mentors to do it pro bono. And also as directors, we do it pro bono. But the reward that we have eventually in the future is those percentage in case that they are successful.
That's a very interesting way of incentivizing good behavior. It's of incentivizing teamwork.
Yes,
and not
because in a way, everyone that is inside the cohort, directors, mentors, other founders, they are willing and really supportive of each other because they want them to succeed.
Yeah. So do you feel like generally here in Frankfurt, in terms of startups, it's going well? I mean, at least better than 10 years ago when you started,
so
right?
yes, there is a huge difference. I just compared to 8 years ago or 4 years ago. When we look it now, well, it's I have a friend that normally says that it's like a tsunami because the amount of startups that there are now starting. You look at WeWork Labs that started 1 year ago, and now I have more than 30 early stage startups with them. We with Founders Institute that just started and also got another 30. You see Tech Quartier is completely full. And I believe that every month you see a new co-working space opening. So you can feel that indeed there are a lot of platforms doing a good work of planting these seeds, and people are now stepping into it, and you see the results of this initial early stage startup ecosystem. Because indeed, when we compare to other ecosystems like Berlin or Silicon Valley, we are really small, true, but the pace that we are right now, it's very interesting, and the indicators are very, very good. So eventually we are growing in the good direction, and we will turn into a very interesting ecosystem soon.
You already mentioned the Berlin-Frankfurt comparison. So Berlin is the biggest startup city in Germany, no doubt, right? Mm-hmm. But you mentioned Frankfurt is on a good way, right?
Yes.
Do you see Frankfurt becoming like a second Berlin, or is it not fair to say because the cities are very different?
The cities are very different. So I believe that we should not target being the second Berlin or the next Silicon Valley, because that's not the right way of doing it. I believe that we should maximize the opportunities that we have in the region. We did a very good effort when it comes to the fintech part. So we have a very good amount of programs and platforms that support fintech initiatives. And I believe that outside Frankfurt, indeed, people recognize Frankfurt as a financial hub. So in that regard, we are doing a great job. But there are also other areas where we can maximize this visibility, like the logistics part. We have as we started our conversation, we have a premium location, we have a premium airport, we have a lot of ecosystems parts that could be used in order to maximize the opportunities that we have in logistics, mobility, and I believe that in this specific field we can still do a lot better.
Okay, I see.
For example, and we have as well the pharmaceutical one. Merck is doing a great job. We have a lot of pharmaceutical companies in the region. I still believe that it's an area that we could grow a lot. So yes, I would say that the challenge would be to not focus too much on the fintech. Yes, there we are doing a good job, but we should try to maximize as well the opportunities on the other business verticals.
So Berlin maybe has an advantage in regards of the software startups.
For example, yes.
Yeah. Okay. In what other areas or aspects about the ecosystem do you see Berlin more ahead of Frankfurt?
Well, I feel that there is one point that I always try to showcase, that Berlin is doing quite well. So when you look at Berlin, most of the events, most of the platforms, most of the startups, they already have the mindset that they are developing international products, international business. It's very common that the startups are run under an English language. When we come back here in Frankfurt, it's not so usual yet. So I remember a lot of startups that some years ago they would say no. Now they are switching, and it's pretty much normal that English is the official language.
In Frankfurt.
In Frankfurt, yeah. Yes. But there are a lot of startups that still need to do this switch of mindset because we have a very great international pool of talent, of students in the region. And when they finish their academical bachelor's or master's, they will look into what's the next step. And if they don't have the chances to stay in Frankfurt, they will go to Berlin, most probably. And when I talk to some of them, I feel that indeed some of them are moving and not staying in Frankfurt because they cannot find the proper mindset or environment for them to stay. And that's where Berlin is doing great. Yeah. And I feel that if we improve that side, we have very good conditions to scale a lot of startups here and to become even more interesting for the people here.
So the Frankfurt startup ecosystem should improve on attracting and keeping talent.
Yes, I would say.
Right?
Yes.
Interesting. Yes. And we could, or you could, or whoever, achieve this by internationalizing it more, by making like English the main language, not German, which I can confirm, at least from my very narrow subjective experience when I was working at a co-working space last year. And I remember there were a lot of startups too, of course, and some of the people there working, they had a lot of problems speaking English. Mm-hmm. Where I thought like, wow, you must interact with so many international people, but like the common language in which you interact, you're not able to speak really. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I do believe that people don't need to be shy about it. So we are not English natives. We were not born in UK or in US. So we cannot be shy about not being perfect in our language. And I feel that a lot of people that I do business with, they don't have the perfect English. But if they are not shy about it, we are all on the same page. So we can understand each other and do business without speaking German or Portuguese, because my official native language is Portuguese. And I feel that once we get, I think, going back to this question, the ecosystem is so early stage that most of the startups are still in a phase that they developed products or service only for the German market. And when they start in this way, it's normal because you start in an easy, controlled environment. So yeah, you can start in German. It's easier. But once this phase of early stage ends up and you start to be mature and you need to scale and you need to internationalize, the next step is to change to the English because it's the most common language in Europe, and those are the easiest markets for you right now. And if it's not Europe, then it's US, then it's English again. So I feel that step by step, in 1-2 years, I think Frankfurt will be there. And I really believe that the ecosystem is growing and doing the right steps to becoming very appealing for international people and to be able to be in side by side with Berlin or Lisbon or Paris, those ecosystems where I've been. I feel that Frankfurt is going in the same direction.
A good example for two non-English natives who can speak English good enough so they can understand each other are you and me right now. I mean, it works, obviously, yes. Right? It's fine. My English is not perfect, yours is not perfect either, but it works perfectly fine. So would you say that in Germany or in Europe there's a startup bubble? Because I hear this, I read this a lot from the US news, that in the USA, in Silicon Valley, there's a bubble and some founders and investors start to leave the valley because it's so much and it's a constant fear of missing out. Do you see something like this happening here in Germany or specifically in Berlin too? That you feel like it's getting too much?
Well, I feel that some of these US companies that you just mentioned are now looking much more into Europe, for example, as a way to diversify, as a way to enter new markets. So it's a good opportunity for Europe. And I believe that I'm not German, I'm not a Frankfurter, so I really believe that I also don't feel like a Portuguese somehow, because I really feel as an European. And I believe that as an European ecosystem, all these small hubs together can represent a lot. So we should together work more closer, and we have this this opportunity that it's so easy for us to travel and to communicate between hubs, to really make the European market more appealing. Because for US investors, US was always the main market because of the size. When they compare the size of US to Germany, it's very small. And the same for Portugal, and the same for Spain, or the same for France. But if we take it as a whole, as a European market, then it's much more interesting. And that's why I said, as we are now scaling up all of these startups, all of these ecosystems, it's becoming much more interesting for US investors, what we have here in Europe.
So when we talked earlier or exchanged messages regarding the interview, you said that you think founders would really need to be comfortable with failing a lot and pivoting and adjusting. And you mentioned that you are comfortable with
Yes.
failing too.
Yes.
When did you notice that this was the case? Was it like with the first few things that didn't work out, or the first big failure that you noticed, hey, I can cope with it, I can move on, and the next one will maybe be more successful?
Well, I believe that indeed, most probably it was on my first failure. So when I had my first negative experience, let's put it in this way, I felt, okay, how can I digest this? Should I become a depressed person? Should I cry? Should I give up and just do what my colleagues do and go to a corporate instead? And that's when I took a moment and I felt, okay, should I question everything about me just because of this failure, or should I learn from it and adapt what I just experienced? It was a negative thing for me, but if I put myself on another shoes and from an external perspective, can I learn something from this and not repeat it? And I said, well, indeed, that's what I should do, the right attitude, instead of just questioning everything and say they are wrong or I'm right or doing something different. I digested what I just experienced and turned it into a positive thing for me and moved for the next one. So I think I kept always doing what I like the most, what I love, and that's a principle that everyone should do, but accept that things happen. So you may love a lot one project or one person, but things can change. You may be the happiest person, everything can be running very smoothly, but you are working in an ecosystem. You are working with multiple things, and something may not be dependent directly on you. You are just a small part of the universe, so you cannot control everything. So it's good for you to understand that, for example, the founder of WeWork, was running an empire, and now he's no longer part of the company, for example. You sometimes lose track or an overview of everything. You cannot expect that things will happen exactly according a plan and that you just adapt for the plan B or plan C. No, you need to keep your journey, and if at some point something happens that it was not as you wanted or as you predicted, you need to digest the information and keep moving forward.
Travis Kalanick of Uber is out too. Maybe a more popular example.
Yes.
And when you see founders,
going back to this,
sure.
It doesn't mean that it's the end for you, because I think with Apple it happened the same. So you may leave the company and keep in contact, and one day you may come back. So it's very normal that if you accept, if you learn, if you adapt, you can be successful.
And when you see founders that you maybe have high hopes in, where you think like, hey, this is a great founder, but you see him maybe not coping well with failures, with things that were hard. Is there some way you try to cheer him up, or you try to motivate him again? Is there some way where you can reframe the situation for him to show him, hey, this is just one single failure on a long way where eventually you will be successful?
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, I do believe that communication is key. So I know a lot of founders that have a pretty much very dense agenda. They are always running meetings by meetings and don't make the time for themselves or for the family or for the stakeholders. And this is critical. So if you are always under stress and under no time to talking to you, whatever, sooner or later you will burn out, or you make someone burn out. So one of the advices, and that's something that I think it's really critical, is really to be good in time management and have time for yourself as a founder as well, because you will need it. Because if you are not in a good mental shape, sooner or later your business will be affected. So when I notice that a founder is going in that direction, is not willing to talk to me or to an employee or to another co-founder, or is always giving excuses and not giving answers, it's a pattern that you will identify. Okay, this person sooner or later is gonna have some troubles, and one can identify and can tell the person, and if the person is willing to change, then it's very good, because the person is accepting the feedback. If not, well, sometimes it's just the beginning of the of a bigger issue.
A founder has a lot of like official things, like bureaucratic things to do, like with the Finanzamt and Gewerbeamt. But what in terms of the ecosystem here, the people here, the institutions, what would you recommend a person in Frankfurt that wants to start a company or already started a company but wants to get in touch with more people? What would you recommend the person does here in Frankfurt?
So indeed, yeah, that's one of the advices that I tell every founder that I work with, to do really a lot of networking, to go out, to talk with other people. It's not a waste of time at all. Indeed, it will. People, and especially in Frankfurt, we know it. We have a really great community that is willing to support each other. And I do believe that that's something that the founders should take advantage of, because if they ask, they will get answers. It may sometimes take longer than expected. Maybe you need to ask once again or ask a different person, but most likely you will get answers that will help you to move forward. So we have a lot of events pretty much every day. We have a lot of platforms that are supporting the ecosystem. I can name a lot of them. Frankfurt Forward, for example, it's one example. As Founders Institute, it's another example. But yes, there are so many platforms that are supporting people, connecting them, promoting that people, connecting the dots like you.
Yeah, a bit like what we do here now.
Yes,
yeah.
And that's great. And founders should really take advantage of that, because it's most of the times those initiatives are for free, and the value that you get out of it may change your business. So, for example, Founders Institute and WeWork Labs has been running events where we do matchmaking for HR, where we try to make co-founders find other co-founders. So we do a lot of speed networking as well, so that people come and met a lot of people in a short amount of time. This can be efficient or non-efficient, but sometimes we do it as well, very target on very specific topics like investors. How can I raise investment for my idea? Then we bring up a lot of investors, and people with these questions will come and ask directly their questions, and we'll get immediate feedback live.
So 2 things you already mentioned, Founder Institute and Frankfurt Forward, right? So if you Google either of those, Founder Institute Frankfurt or your name, Pedro Ferreira, you should immediately find a lot of results in Google you can contact. I want to give the people like very, very concrete, very practical tips. That's why I mentioned that.
Frankfurt Forward is an initiative from the city, from Wirtschaftsförderung in Frankfurt. I also have a platform, an online platform called Frankfurt Valley, where I aggregate all of this information. So the initiatives from Frankfurt Forward, from Tech Quartier, from Ulm, from Merck. I don't know. I believe that the power of centralizing all this information is, again, something that will create value for our founders, and that's why I do it under Frankfurt Valley.
And there's also an initiative, especially for women, right? Did you initiate that? Or who did it?
Well, yes. So there is an initiative that I call Women Who Inspire Rhine-Main. That indeed I tried to move it forward to sparkle and to empower more the female entrepreneurship. And we work closely together with other female platforms like Women Tech Makers, Lean-In, My Career and Child. So we have a close partnership with Digital Media Women to support their initiatives, to share their meetups. And we also do our own meetups, like for the next International Women's Day, we are doing a meetup. We always bring female entrepreneurs, female founders, or female successful role models in order to inspire the other female in the audience in order to step up and face their challenge and be successful. And we also target to bring more men on board to these discussions, for them to understand, or for us to understand, that we also have a role on this to solve these situations in career, salary gaps, and
I remember at the networking event that I was at yesterday that you co-organized, I talked about this issue with 2 women, that they are in some areas like feeling like they are a lot of men and not enough women. I made this experience too in agencies, where the higher in the hierarchy you get, the more men you have. Is this a common topic in startup ecosystems in like in the Western world?
Yes.
Is it something Frankfurt specific?
It's common. So unfortunately, the percentage of companies that are founded by female founders are really low. So we are talking about, in average in Europe, it's around 12%, which is quite bad. Worldwide, maybe a bit higher. In some regions, we are maybe talking about 25-30%. Worldwide, there are multiple initiatives that are trying to change this in order to empower young female students to feel comfortable to start their own companies, or even stable, older female successful people to just leave their jobs and follow their passions and their dreams and start startups. We at Founders Institute, we also have like a fellowship to promote in order so that more women really start. We had a good ratio of female founders that were starting. I think we were around 25% were female, but in the end, it decreased a bit in the graduation. So that's why all of these platforms like Women Who Inspire Rhine Mine, what we try to do is really to tackle this issue and to try to increase the amount of female founders and as well female employees on the startups.
Do you have certain books or talks that people can see on YouTube that you, on the startup topic, on the startup journey generally, are there some resources you can recommend?
Well, there is a book that I was involved in the production of this book. It's called Startup Guide Frankfurt. So for people that really don't know anything about the ecosystem, is really good. And this book is available in all the main ecosystems. But for Frankfurt, what it does is to sum up the most important players or people that you need to know, from investor side, startup founders, co-working spaces, corporates. So it sums up pretty much the basic top 10 of every sector in order for you to have it quite summarized in very handful way, a great design. So Startup Guide Frankfurt, it's a very good book to have. I will offer you one.
Thank you very much.
And apart from that, I believe that online there are a lot of resources. So Station, for example, for those who speak German, is a good way to be updated. They pretty much cover the news about the ecosystem.
Is it Frankfurt based?
It is.
Station?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
When you Google Station Frankfurt Startup, you will find it,
yes,
right?
You should find it. It should be the first one.
Pedro, thank you very, very much. I encourage everybody listening to check your workout and what you do online.
Thank you.
Pedro always organizes a lot of events in the Frankfurt area and also in Gießen now. Mm-hmm. So I encourage people who are interested in that to check this out. I was at one yesterday and it was great. I will definitely go again if I'm allowed to. And thank you very much, Pedro.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Yes, thank you for the nice talk.
You're welcome. Okay, see you.
See ya.
Thank you very much for listening. I'd like to encourage you to follow the Connecting Dots podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or every other podcast player that you use. It would also help a lot if you would give me a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. That would definitely help me to grow the podcast faster and to share the stories and learnings of the people I interview. So thank you very much, and until next time.